Morning. Welcome to Great Transition Strategies Monday Morning Standup. 5 minutes, get your week off to a great start, and potentially give you something to make you a more effective leader. Today's topic, some reflections on Martin Luther King on this 2022 Martin Luther King Day. All right, I'm Gary Simon. I'm an executive coach. I work with leaders, high-performing leaders, to help them build their self-awareness, understand how they lead, so they can be the most effective leader possible. So Martin Luther King Day. Here it is, 2022, Martin Luther King weekend. What comes to mind when you think of Martin Luther King? Clearly, the I Have a Dream speech is one of those images that we all have because we've seen it plenty of times. When you think about him and you do a little more studying, and today, Martin Luther King Day is a day of service. He was a servant leader. So let's talk a little bit about that. But first reflect on him, some of the things he accomplished, and let's talk about servant leadership. First, what do you know about him? Born 1929, January 15th. The holiday is celebrated the third weekend in January. January 15th, 1929, he'd have been 93 this weekend. Married 1953 to Coretta King, who we're all familiar with. And 1955 is when he started rising to fame. 55 in Montgomery, Alabama, where when he lived there, he became involved with the NAACP, a local chapter, in the leadership there. But he helped lead the Montgomery movement, the Montgomery bus strikes. That's when he started rising to prominence. Here he was at that point. He was only, 26 years old at that particular point. And he was helping lead that movement. After that, in leading that movement, he knew there were going to be a lot of injustices. And he, in his mind, peaceful protest. He took Gandhi's example. Peaceful protest is what he taught all those he was working with. That's how he led. 1961, part of the Freedom Riders. 1963, August 29th, on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, the I Have a Dream speech that we're all familiar with. That was part of the Jobs and Freedom March. 250,000 people in August in D.C. So we have that vision of him. He was involved with a number of other things, ultimately assassinated in Memphis in 1968. So April 4th, 1968, at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, he was assassinated. There, when you think about all that he'd done, so you think of the things that he had done, that was just a quick synopsis. He was a key figure in the civil rights movement in the United States of America. He saw himself as a servant leader. He felt he was serving those that he was leading. How did he serve those? He served them by educating, setting an example, and being that person that they could look up to and making others aware of the plight of those he was leading. So let's take that lesson. What are you doing as a leader when you see yourself? How are you serving those that you lead? Interesting, let me give you an anecdote. I worked with an organization, about 100, maybe 120 people in this organization. They had a leadership course. They still have this leadership course where they develop all their leaders. And part of the mantra of this organization is service to others. And they offer 40 hours a year to every single employee for community service, to go out and serve others. So they expect their leaders to serve those that work in the organization, to serve them by, how am I going to grow these individuals? They have to attend a leadership development series of classes, dependent upon where they are in the organization, leadership-wise. They're serving them, improving them so they can serve others. Then they offer the opportunity for public service, 40 hours. Just like sick days, hey, I want to take a sick day, I could take a community service day and do whatever I want to do to serve the community. So what are you doing as a servant leader? When you think of servant leadership, what does that mean to you? How are you serving those that you're leading? And how can you serve them better? So that's something I just kind of like to plant that seed. Martin Luther King Day is a day of national service. So it's an opportunity to think about national service. How are you serving others? As a leader, we hear the term servant leadership. How many of us really take the time to say, this is how I define servant leadership, and this is what I am doing to serve the people I lead? Just some thoughts on this Martin Luther King Day on 2022. Hope you found that helpful. Have a great week. Be a servant leader. serve those that you lead. Have a great week. See you next Monday morning, 8:30.